Hello everyone. In continuation to the description of hemorrhage, we shall further continue its other aspect. As we have already described the different classifications under which we discussed that the classification may be done on different basis, as the arterial hemorrhage represented by a pulsatile spurting jet-like appearance of the bright red blood coming out of its source, or the passive hemorrhage from the vein of the color that is respectively dark, and the oozing character of the capillary hemorrhage. As well as if we discuss it on the basis the primary, reactionary and secondary, it has already been discussed that just at once the occurrence the blood comes out, that is called primary, while if the blood shedding once ceased and reappears within 24 hours, most prominently within 4 to 6 hours, it is reactionary, which comes as a result of dislodgement of the ligature or sloughing out of the clot. And further, we have discussed the internal and external. Here, the external hemorrhage is obviously it may be felt that bleeding is coming out, but the internal hemorrhage which occurs as a result of rupture of spleen, liver, femur, ruptured ectopic pregnancy, or in the cerebral hemorrhage, these are noted, or these can be estimated on the basis of the features occurring, which has been already been described. And according to nature of bleeding, we noted two types, that is the acute hemorrhage and the chronic hemorrhage. Here, the acute hemorrhage, it means there is a certain condition where bleeding comes just at once. An external bleeding, if takes place, it is very easily recognized, but when it is internal, it may be recognized on by thinking about or on by the observation, like the increasing pallor, pulse rate, restlessness, air hunger. These accompanied with the cold and clammy skin, empty vein, and later on the tinnitus and the blindness. Tinnitus, I think you must know, the noise in the ear is called commonly tinnitus. Now, what would be the effect of this acute hemorrhage if it is unchecked? The blood loss results in failure of the heart and vasomotor center to maintain a sufficient oxygen perfusion. And again, the chronic hemorrhage, actually the pattern of hemorrhage from the lesions which tends to bleed off and on, episodal or paroxysmal, just like hemorrhoids. Bleeding from hemorrhoid takes place mostly when trying to pass a stool, and in between period there is no bleeding. Or the fibroid, uterine fibroid, which produces irregular bleeding. Carcinoma of the cecum. It is one of the important character of the carcinoma to differentiate from the bleeding from the other source, especially hemorrhoid. that you will find the blood coming out only during, before, or just after the passing stool. And in between period, there is no significance of any bleeding. But in case of carcinoma, the external anal opening and that part remains almost always slightly wet, and when you try to check, you will find a slight significance of blood. This continuous presence of blood shows some malignancy inside, especially the lower portion of the large intestine, and most frequently that is the carcinoma. So, in chronic conditions, the bleeding is almost paroxysmal, and due to the fact the blood volume is not diminished as the plasma replacement is usual. We know that just after seizing the blood, the plasma is restored from the tissue space, and restoration almost completes within 8 hours. Though the plasma protein also replaced from the liver, and the different type of WBC like the granulocytes from the hemocytoblast. Certainly RBC takes some more time to be replaced, that is almost 4 to 6 weeks, but that RBC is also developing from the bone marrow, from where these 3 varieties like neutrophil, eosinophil and basophil comes. Next, other varieties from lymphocyte from the lymphoid organs, and the monocytes from the reticuloendothelial system. These all varieties are scheduled to be replaced within a week or 8 days. So, only thing in chronic hemorrhage is the anemia, and due to anemia there may be a anemic hypoxia, and these patients may develop high output cardiac failure. High output cardiac failure because when there is the constant anemic condition, for the purpose to supply the requisite amount of oxygen, the heart is required to act fast, and the heart rate must be slightly enhanced, and that enhanced rate will cause the high output cardiac failure. Now, we shall further discuss about certain clinical laboratory measurement of the hemorrhage. Hemorrhage has taken place, and suppose through appropriate means you became able to cease the bleeding. Now, how you could estimate that how much blood has been shredded out? This is important for the purpose, if required, the transfusion replacement therapy. Here, if patient is admitted in bedside observation by appearance of cold nose indicates severe shock and imminent peripheral failure. This is one of the important features if patient is almost unconscious, lying like a dead body on the bed. Now if you required to estimate his condition, you just touch his tip of nose with the dorsum of the hand like this, and you will find a icy coldness. This icy coldness of the tip of the nose, this indicates a severe shock or peripheral failure. The next thing is record keeping of the pulse rate and blood pressure. In severe case, the pulse rate and blood pressure should be recorded every 15 minutes to half an hour, and when the condition becomes standstill or almost satisfactory level, then the routine examination should be taken on 4-hourly interval. One thing must be noted, that for the purpose to take the blood pressure, if patient is sleep, he must not be disturbed, because in such a critical condition, the sleep gives almost more sufficient help to the patient, even something more than the medicine. And if it is not urgently required, don't disturb the patient for either investigative diagnostic process or even for the purpose to give some medication until scheduled time is not be maintained. Next, the hemoglobin level. No immediate change, but level decreases in a few hours due to hemodilution. If just the shedding out of blood has been ceased and you want to estimate its hemoglobin percentage, you will get a false result. Why? Because just with the cessation, the blood remaining inside the circulatory channel is maintaining its prior composition. Certainly, its total volume is diminished. So, you will find the hemoglobin level just before starting of this bleeding. So, it is better to take after 8 hours or 12 hours when the hemodilution will take place. In this circumstance, hematocrit is the other confirmative test. It is almost a simple blood test you know very well, and done to measure the RBC concentration inside the blood. For this purpose, a 110 millimeter long stout glass tube is taken, whose diameter is 2.5 to 3 millimeter, and it has been graduated from 0 to 100. This tube is filled with 0.8 ml of oxalated blood and centrifuged at 3000 rounds per minute for 30 minutes. It gives the range of the RBC, the normal range in the venous blood. In male is 40 to 56%, in female 35 to 48%, in children 32 to 44%. In this way, you can estimate the presence of RBC, and indirectly you can estimate how much blood has been lost. For the purpose to measure the blood loss, certain other parameters have also been used, like firstly blood loss if on the plane surface where absorption is not so much or distortion or diminished volume is not so much possible, suppose just like in the room, and if blood comes and collects on the pavement, at that time if you find a clot of the size like a clenched fist, just this one size, a clot of the size clenched fist indicates about 500 ml blood has been shedded down. Again, swelling in the closed fracture, a moderate swelling in the fracture of tibia equals 500 to 1500 ml, and the same swelling in the case of femur indicates 500 to 2000 ml. Next, if this has been done in the operation theatre where the swab has been used, now the swab which is used for this purpose is priorly weighted how much it weighs. Suppose it is 250 gram, and after operation its weight reaches to 350 grams or 400 grams. It means 150 grams weight is increased, and this is the weight of the blood. Though 1 gram is not actually 1 ml, you know, it is a little bit lower than the gram, but in lump sum way, roughly 1 gram is estimated to be 1 ml. Certainly, in case of mastectomy, this measurement is enhanced and it equals to 1.5 ml for 1. Now, the blood volume is determined also with the help of certain radioactive iodinated serum albumin. It is called RISA, RISA, all in capital. It abbreviates this radioactive iodinated serum albumin. It is injected for estimation of the plasma, and radiochromium or radio iron is injected for RBC, and this after injection it is allowed to mix with the blood, and then blood sample is taken and its proportion is estimated, and the normal value is in adult 70 to 85 ml per kg of the weight. Next, the measurement of central venous pressure. The range is 5 centimeter to 15 centimeter of water. 5 centimeter is certainly low, 15 centimeter is high. In between this range, the blood almost stands, and after getting this reading, this observation, you can estimate how much blood has been lost by accumulating all these informations. In this way, the total blood loss is to be estimated. Now, after estimation, we have to undertake the treatment of blood loss, and for this purpose, we includes two measures mainly. Number one, to stop further shedding of the blood, and second, the replacement of the shedded quantity of blood in so many forms, that may be whole blood, that may be plasma, that may be packed cell, and likewise. Now, for the purpose to stop the further blood loss, we usually undertake number one, pressure and packing; second, position and rest; third, operation; fourth, ligature, repair, excision, likewise. And now for the purpose to restore of the blood volume, we have to give the whole blood transfusion, or we may supplement it with the help of saline, dextrine, or plasma. Now we shall undertake the measures which I counted for the purpose to stop the hemorrhage. The pressure, first is the pressure. It is the most simple method and most frequently used. Suppose you have been slightly hurt and bleeding takes place. Suppose here is you simply give pressure by holding it between this thumb and index finger, and if the injury is of mild degree, after such type of pressure you will find that further blood shedding has been ceased. But if it is slightly more, then what happens? After this pressure, you see the bleeding is, blood is not coming out. But when you allow the arm or affected area to hang down, then blood again started coming. It means this much pressure is not sufficient completely to cease the blood shedding, and in this purpose the limb is required to be placed in the position where low gravitational pressure is imposed upon the blood vessel. Like if here is the injury, you must hold this hand upside. Again, if the injury is lacerated, it should be provided with soft linen to bind it tightly. Pressure may also be imposed to check the hemorrhage by, this one I told, the use of the forefinger and the thumb. Most frequently it is used for the purpose to check the blood coming from the nose, epistaxis, and use of a double balloon in the esophagus and the stomach to control the bleeding from the esophageal varices. This one is the more important and more complicated condition where blood shedding is almost quite difficult to be ceased, and such bleeding takes place at the lower end of the esophagus where the varices has taken place. You know that portion of the esophagus is more blood rich area because the plexuses of the normal blood circulation as well as the plexus of the portal system both are present there, and mostly in course of regurgitation of acidic substances, the portion becomes irritated, or some portion some portion gets eroded. And if the pressure occurs as during the weightlifting or straining during stool, and likewise, most frequently the varices ruptures, and it is controlled by introducing the balloon, double ballooning, and the patient is sent to the hospital as early as possible. And this balloon, after inserting at the site, it is inflated and pressure gives upon that ruptured side, and thus causes the bleeding to be ceased. Again, in the case of wide open wound, either produced accidentally or in course of surgical operation inside the OT, when the entire gap of the wound is required to be filled up with soaked clean linen, especially in the case of accident, and it is closely tied from outside so that a firm compression may be produced on the unidentified bleeder and bleeding may be ceased. In such cases, some other experiences has also been identified and noted, especially in the case of battlefield. Suppose any soldier has been wounded with a bomb blast and a large gap has been created on his thigh or any likewise larger surfaces. In such case, his companion soldier engaged in his rescue, what does? He suddenly take his cap and put it into the gap, and with the help of his handkerchief, it is tied. Now you can say that the cap is bearing the dirt of the battlefield and you are putting it into the wound. It may contaminate the wound. Certainly it may contaminate. But here the more important is to save his life. If the bleeder is allowed to bleed for a sufficiently long period, it will create the danger of life. And suppose if we pack it with his even the dirty cap, what may happen? The most probably there may be infection, there may be sepsis. It may be treated, but once the person has been rescued from the life-threatening events. Again, most frequently in the obstetric and gynec OT, the packing is required in most of the surgical procedure. Vaginal packing is most frequently used. In such cases, because you are here in the OT, the most commonly produced, most commonly found packing material is the sterilized gauze, and the surgeon put the gauze one by one inside the vaginal pore and pack the entire gap. Here one thing must be noted, that when you are putting the gauze in the vagina, you must tie the end of first gauze with the end of second gauze, and second with the third, and third with fourth, and in this way, so that when the gauze is required to be removed, at that time it must be ensured that the total roll of gauze has been removed, and otherwise if you put it one by one, there may be possibility of any gauze to remain inside, which can produce other critical condition. Again, apparently ceased bleeding after removal of the pressure. When we use the pressure and after removal of the pressure, it appears that bleeding has been ceased. It is not confirmed that it is permanent, because following any rise in internal pressure, it may again start to bleed. For that purpose, the next process is used, and that is the position. And it is maintained by using or by keeping the injured area uplifted upward. Suppose the hand is injured, it should be kept in this way, foot is kept upward, or in cases where the area of trunk is injured, or abdominal injury where the packing or through any means to have ceased tentatively the bleeding, at that time the elevation of the foot end of the bed and likewise processes are used for the purpose to release the pressure from the vascular system, so that the pressure may not create the gap again which has been seized by the pressure. And the next thing is rest. When once the bleeding has been ceased, the part or the body on the whole required to provide the rest, because during rest there is respectively slow circulation which produce respectively low pressure at the suspected area. Again, for the purpose to give proper rest, sedation may also be thought of, and it may bring rest, but it is confirmably indicated there is respiratory depression, as in the head injury this sedation must not be applied. And the next one is the operative techniques. Artery forceps or hemostat are mechanical means of controlling the bleeding by pressure. The clamped vessels can be ligated with catgut, cotton or silk thread. The vessels may also be coagulated by diathermy. The vessels may require suturing, and in this way we can cease the blood shedding. Thank you.